What I saw was someone who was afraid she was going to go to jail if she testified forthrightly. Speaking of crisis, we've had also today, I want to address the testimony by the U.S. Secret Service Director, Cheatle. And it was an unusual hearing in the sense that both Republicans and Democrats were furious at her. And I think there is a certain bipartisan concern about the security and the collapse of security related to President Trump. My big issue is that this has been an issue that's been out there percolating for years, and it shouldn't have taken a man being murdered who went to see Trump, two Americans being shot who went to see Trump and gravely injured, and President Trump himself being nearly killed and injured as a result of this assassin's bullet, or would-be assassin's bullet. And as I've noted, and it's worth noting again because the crisis hasn't abated and it's an emergency right now, the Secret Service has been shown to be incapable of defending President Trump, President Biden, and every single one of their other protectees. And so the Secret Service Director, who many people have called on to resign, went up to the Hill and essentially gave out zero information. Zero information. And of course, people were outraged. Here's a little bit of her colloquy with Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who asked for some basic timeline information. Let's show that.
Were you not prepared today to answer our questions?
I am prepared to answer the questions based on the information and wanted to be able to provide.
Do you have a timeline do you have a timeline at all from any of the day?
I have a timeline that does not have specifics.
That's shocking. That is absolutely unacceptable. That means you are a failure at your job. Were you not prepared today to answer?
And here's a congressman who did his own little investigation and, I think kind of channeled the outrage that virtually every member there had.
I have never had any long gun training in my life. I own an AR-15, and last time I shot it one time my whole life. It was 6 years ago. That is until Saturday, where we recreated the events in Savoy, Texas. We recreated what happened in Butler. I was lying prone on a sloped roof at 130 yards at 6:30 at night. And I knew that he had a scope. I didn't know what kind, red dot or magnified. So I shot 8 rounds from both. You know what the result was? 15 out of 16 kill shots. And the one I missed would have hit the president's ear. That's a 94% success rate. And that shooter was a better shot than me. It is a miracle President Trump wasn't killed. Corey Compagnore's life is over because that damn shooter made it on the roof. And it wasn't the roof that was dangerous. It was the nut job on top of the roof. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful. And you should be fired immediately and go back to Garden Doritos. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
And it wasn't just Republicans. I was pleasantly surprised to see AOC really, I wouldn't have changed one question she asked, and this was some of her questioning.
Across the country that are happening in about 100 days. So the notion of a report coming out in 60 days when the threat environment is so high in the United States, irrespective of party, is not acceptable. And I think it's very important to understand that. This is not theater. This is not about jockeying. This is about the safety of some of the most highly targeted and valued targets internationally and domestically in the United States of America. So the idea that a report will be finalized in 60 days, let alone prior to any actionable decisions that would be made, is simply not acceptable.
Yeah.
It has been 10 days since an assassination.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. And she pointed out, all of those members have an interest in AOC because of her public statements and profile. And she's I'm sure, as she disclosed, suffered many death threats, some of which I'm sure have been quite serious, some of which, as she said, aren't even public, because there's a concern sometimes about putting out too much information about that because it would encourage others to go and give them nasty ideas. So when you see Democrats and Republicans concerned, it's a serious issue. People are deathly afraid for the lives of everyone under Secret Service protection right now. And of course, they're all members of Congress and they face security issues as well. And I'm sure they're thinking, well, are our people similarly inept? And the idea that this Secret Service director will go up there and actually make a confession to me, though, is naive. What I saw was someone who's afraid she was going to go to jail if she testified forthrightly, or she testified to any facts that later would be subject to revision, right? So she wasn't going to disclose anything. So Congress can't rely on her to do what needs to be done. And AOC later said, you know, we may have to engage in emergency legislation. That's exactly right. And unfortunately, they're not going to have a partner in the Biden administration. They're not going to have a partner there. As I've noted, Biden has abused the Secret Service. I mean, much of the recent problems are because of the morale issues caused by him and the politicized diversity and non-security related agenda of his appointee, Ms. Cheatle, and their leadership. I mean, even if Cheatle's removed, they've got a $3 billion agency. Who's going to run it? Another Biden appointee. So there's a real crisis here. And I'm glad Congress is doing a little bit of work. I mean, as one of their members said, why didn't we do this a week ago? We all went to the convention. Wasn't it important enough to have an emergency hearing? No. I don't want to overstate anything. Congress isn't, let me be direct. I doubt Congress is going to do anything substantive before the election. If it does, it would be a remarkable surprise. They're going to have hearings where they yell at the director. Maybe the director ends up resigning. In the meantime, the structural deficiencies of the Secret Service will continue. It just has all the other deep state agencies that should be managed, administered, regulated, overseen by Congress and the executive branch will continue just to stumble along. Sometimes they do their jobs. That's good, but it's at great expense and it's almost luck. And as always, Judicial Watch is stepping up. We're doing the heavy lifting. We've got a series of Freedom of Information Act requests, open records requests out to the federal agencies, various state agencies, county agencies, everyone involved in providing security or who would have been in a position to know about the security that was being provided. Because we're not waiting 60 days before we file lawsuits. We're not waiting months and months before Congress takes action with legislation. We're going to do our own investigation. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.